It's the Hogstyle. Do it!
Oh, it's you. You're back on the Hogsty, Washington's absolutely unofficial leading source for all things Redskins in the NFL. Make sure you're getting all your late breaking news from us on the social medias, namely on Twitter at the Hogsty, on Facebook at facebook.com/hailtothehogs, and on YouTube at youtube.com/thehogsty. Whew. We're back with you today. I think this is, what is this? Is this episode 3 or episode 4? Somebody tell me. I forget.
Episode 4.
Episode 4.
It's 4. It's our 4th episode. That deserves a round of applause, guys. Good job to the Hogsty.
We made
All
it
right.
number 4.
That's our intrepid crew you're hearing, of course. My name's Sean Conti. We've got Steve Thomas holding it down.
Howdy, howdy.
Kelly Warall's back with us today.
Hey there.
Alex Zeese here again.
Hello. How's you guys doing?
Good to have you as always. And Robbie Deadeye Duncan, of course, is part of the team once again, forever.
What up, peeps?
All right, well, before we get into it, we've got another fun game for you guys today. We're going to do a little position group review. Steve's got a nice, very informative legal segment. But before we do that, Kelly, will you take us through just what the hell's going on in the NFL world these days?
Well, sure. There's obviously not a whole hell of a lot going on in the NFL world these days because it's the middle of May and the NFL doesn't do an awful lot. The rookie camp did start, however, this weekend. So rookies all over the league are now flocking to their respective clubhouses and getting it done NFL style. All except for one rookie who has finally decided after a long and tumultuous career to retire. That would be our new Redskin, Connor Halliday. Signed by the Redskins a few minutes ago, and then has decided to call it quits. So Connor Halliday, one day actually after the Washington Post released a great article about how grateful he was to be a Redskin and how happy his mother was that he was in the NFL, has retired. So thanks for all of the great memories, Connor, and best of luck to you going forward. Some other headlines.
He went out on top.
Yeah, go out undefeated, Connor Halliday.
Rode off into the sunset.
Absolutely. Other things going on. The Hard Knocks show, some of you may be familiar with, where they take a lucky NFL team gets to have cameras in their face all through training camp and so forth. And apparently the next season of Hard Knocks will be either the Cleveland Browns or your Washington Redskins will be the focus of this fantastic show. So we'll get to see hopefully more of Jay Gruden yelling at people. Which there's been some good clips of that in the past. Some of you may have heard about Deflategate. If you haven't, then you're not listening to this show. So Deflategate, Brady has gotten a 4-game suspension, and there's been fine leveled on Brady and the Patriots by the NFL. They're going to appeal. So Brady's announced that he's going to appeal the punishment that he got. But that appeal is going to be heard by Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell will be the arbiter of that appeal. The NFLPA has issued a statement saying that they don't think that Goodell is the right person to do this because he's biased. Goodell has said, well, I'll hear that appeal as well. So probably going to be Goodell overseeing this case and seeing what's happening. The final headline, Santana Moss is no longer, he's played his last game as a Redskin. And I know we all have a lot of great memories of Santana. Thank him for his service, wish him the best. So let's end the headlines here with a round of applause for Santana Moss.
A very passionate, thankful round of applause to a
Absolutely.
great Redskin. Well, thank you, Kelly. Lots going on, obviously. I just want to say, Santana Moss, you're one of my favorite Redskins. He is the record holder for single-season receiving yards. What is that? I think it's like 1,400, almost 1,500 yards. That was back in 2005, very early in his career. He's also the last remnant, I feel like, of the Portis, Moss, Taylor trifecta that is still playing. So one of my favorite Redskins. Sad to see him go, but what a career.
Yeah, I love Santana Moss. I think we mentioned this on a prior episode. It truly is the end of an era. I don't know if it was a very good era necessarily. Judging from the record and results.
He was the best part of it.
Right. He was the most successful, best part of it.
Well, he was up there. I would say Cooley was in there, and there are a couple guys who are part of a great little
obviously Clinton
offense
Portis,
we had
but,
going there.
Santana Moss was always a class act. He was emotional on and off the field. We saw that last year when he, practically attacked the ref, after the touchdown that got stolen from us when Robert Griffin dove into the end zone. In another era, I think if he had been on a different Redskin team, this is a guy who would have been an all-time Redskin great. He may be anyway now, but
I think he is. I think he qualifies at that level. You can call that guy a great Redskin, because not only did he get it done, he got it done with a myriad of terrible quarterbacks. He got it done without any kind of a threat opposite him on the other side that was drawing attention away. He got it done against bigger players. He got it done against stronger players. Right. He was a little guy. He was an angry guy. It reminds me of Gary Clark, the way that he would play, that small, kind of fiery, passionate kind of guy. So, Santana Moss, the fact that he got it done when nobody else was getting it done, he's always going to have my gratitude.
So true. And you mentioned Gary Clark. I think Moss is actually one below Clark on the all-time yards list. So it goes Art Monk's first for all-time receiving yards for the Redskins, then Charlie Taylor, Gary Clark, and then Santana Moss. Gary Clark was 8,740. Moss was just he was like 1,000 below that at 7,300. But that's pretty damn good. He's also in the top 5 of almost every single stat line. Like I said, he's the number 1 for single-season receiving yards, and in the top 5 for career receiving yards for the Redskins. So I think you can definitely safely call him one of the greats. One of the great skins.
Well, the guy always came through in the clutch. Every time the Redskins needed a big play, when he was in his prime, it seemed like he was the one that made it. He beat the Cowboys, single-handedly. It seemed like a couple times.
Oh, sure,
so,
that one game.
Yeah,
that one game will go down in history as one of the all-time greats for the Redskins.
I think so.
Absolutely.
There's that one. There was the game with the Jaguars in overtime. That's one of my favorite memories of him. He spun off the guy and caught it and just ran it in for the end zone or for the touchdown.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: I always kind of thought for a lot of his career here, he was kind of I don't want to say misused because he was very productive, but they kept on putting him on the outside when naturally he should have been a slot guy for most of his career. Just with his agility and his speed, he would have created more mismatches.
Well, they kept picking up other receivers who couldn't play on the outside
That's
either.
a good point, Alex. His body type and the way he plays is more sort of maybe slot guy, but he stepped up and played the X receiver, for a whole bunch of years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you pick up these X guys, but you look at the guys that we took to play across from them. Devin Thomas, Malcolm Kelly. You got guys who either couldn't play football or couldn't stay healthy.
The best number 2 was probably Randall L. When we had Antoine there.
Yeah, when you got Antoine Randall L. as your it's just not going to happen. There's you can't put the guy in the slot when you don't have anybody to put on the outside either. So, but if any of these other people had worked out, so for all the good stats and numbers that Moss was able to put up, imagine what he could have put up if we hadn't had Vinny Serrato, choosing people
Do we really have to
for him to
relive
play
Vinny
with.
Serrato?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Let's not.
It's a great point. We did Santana Moss a great disservice in his career by employing him on this team.
When we got Moss, though, it was brilliant because we had just taken Lavernius Coles from the Jets. We got Coles from the Jets, and then we turned around and traded Coles 1-for-1 back to the Jets for Santana Moss. And you look at how those two careers panned out after that trade. Yeah. I would say we clearly got the better end of that trade.
I met Lavernus Coles in the lobby of a hotel once, and just suffice to say that he was not enthralled with the fact that the public was around him.
No, that's one of the problems that I have as well. I'm more than happy to hang out places and do things and do public events. Is when other people happen to show up, then I get very upset. I'm very upset if you ever put me in a situation where there are people. Especially public people.
Well, Kelly, with your fans that we've developed from, this Hogsty thing that is booming, I understand how you may get mobbed by the public sometimes.
I'm fine if I don't speak, Steve. It's the moment that I open my voice, everybody recognizes instantly who I am, and then it's mayhem. Mayhem ensues.
Hey, on another sadder note, I'd just like to point out that B.B. King died this week. For an old guitar player like me, he was a legend of his field, tremendous blues player. He's the one that taught me that playing slow and with feeling means a whole lot more than just a whole bunch of notes in two measures. So, rest in peace, B.B. King.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there, brother. I'm with you there. I've been playing guitar for about 20 years over here. I got into guitar because of some Led Zeppelin songs that I really liked, and you start when you're a young guitar player and you're new, you have your people that you emulate, and then once you've got a handle on that, you look back and see who did they emulate. And I look at Jimmy Page, where he came from, and it's all about Howlin' Wolf. It's all about Robert Johnson. It's all about these old blues guys from back in the day, and B.B. King right there among them. It's a big loss for him, but he had a good run, did a lot of amazing things. Never heard a guy play guitar with more pure, deep feeling that you could get through that guitar than B.B.
You can listen to one
so
note
he'll be
of
missed.
B.B. King play
and thanks for everything.
So rest in peace. By the way, I'd just like to point out that I'm very conflicted on the Hard Knocks thing. I would eagerly watch every moment of it, if it comes on. But I really hate the idea of having the Redskins have to deal with that. We have enough drama. So I'd watch it, but no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you're instantly going to have the big questions come up. Oh, RG3 being on Hard Knocks, and we really don't need to deal with that. Yeah. I think the point you made early on, Kelly, Jay Gruden, when he was on Hard Knocks back in Cincinnati, that's the guy you want to see as your head coach. The cursing up a storm, fire and passion. It's not the guy we see in the press conferences now. So I think it'd be good maybe for him from a PR standpoint, but not much else.
I don't think that Jay Gruden cares too much about his PR. Not in the way that like a Robert Griffin did when he first got into the NFL. I think that Robert Griffin, by the way, still cares about his PR. But I don't. But I think that he's starting to mature a little bit and recognize that where it falls in the list of priorities in his life. I think he has finally kind of gotten the idea that he's there's no sense going out and being the smiling face of every promotional campaign you can get onto if you're not playing football on the field. I think that Griffin has gotten that message. I think he's buckling down. He's focused, and the attention has come off of him. Robert Griffin on Hard Knocks, not a great thing, but also, more importantly, not his choice. This isn't something that he sought to do for attention. This is something that, the producers thought, where's a disastrous team that we can focus on? Hey, how about Washington?
I was going to say, I don't think it's that big of a deal for... I hear what you're saying, Steve, about the drama. But keep in mind, last year we had Roberts and Breland almost killing each other in practice. That video came out. I don't know if you remember that, but they got into a serious fistfight. It's the losing that really creates the drama. And if anything, Hard Knocks to me would just pull the lid off the whole thing and allow you to see, okay, is this really ineptitude we're dealing with? Like, what's really going on? I don't think it would cause too much more drama. If anything, it would just make people feel more accountable. I certainly see what you're saying. I don't think it would be a bad idea. I'm all for it. I'd love to see it.
I think
more visibility is better than less.
I'd like to see the team from the inside.
No one here is going to deny that we're all going to be captivated by it, and we'll all probably watch it 2 or 3 times over just because.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd watch it, but I don't know. It just makes me nervous because we've had so much weird drama and stuff go on. I'm not that excited about injecting more of it in there unnecessarily. And by the way, just in case people are wondering out there, the Redskins did not volunteer for this. The way it works is that the NFL and HBO have an agreement wherein if no team volunteers for this, and no team is going to ever volunteer for this pretty much unless your name is the New York Jets possibly, there's a set of criterion that HBO uses that limits the pool. One of them is if you have a new coach, you can't get picked. One of them, I believe, is you're a playoff team. You can't get picked.
I think it's if you make the playoffs, you're out for 2 years is the deal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so since we haven't done that, there's a list of I don't want to say 6 or 7 eligible teams that HBO can pick, and so HBO, I guess, is interested in us. So that's how it works. I can't imagine Scott McLuhan is going to want to volunteer us for something like this.
No, the thing that I'm worried about most when it comes to this is that, if the Redskins end up on HBO every week and it's just going to, the name change controversy is going to get out of control. People, the more you put the Redskins out in the media.
What has been the MO of the Redskins over the past 3 years? It's every PR situation, they make the wrong decision, and it's a nightmare. So that's just going to be, made worse by HBO being amplified.
Harvest Fest has gone very well.
I just want to say, though, about that, I just want to say about that the name change thing is going to rear its ugly head anytime this team has any modicum of success. Anytime we're in the media for any reason, whether it's because we're playing well or we're playing poorly or we have some horrible dysfunction thing happening.
Even if something has nothing to do with us,
the name change thing is going to keep coming up.
Yeah, and it just popped up again during Deflategate.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I at the risk of putting our status as the unofficial source of all Redskins news here, or at risk of us ever not being the official source, I'd like to point out here that the leader of of the team's PR efforts through all of the nonsense has been one man, and his first name is Tony and his last name is Wiley. I don't understand how Tony Wiley has a job in PR. I don't understand how the heck he thinks that some of the decisions he makes help the team at all. Some of his interactions with the press, the whole Colt McCoy, thing from the Dallas game last year.
No means no.
All of it has just been a total disaster, and the team's handling of the name change thing could have been so much better, and that's been a disaster. It's just one thing after another with the guy.
It's very hard to, if you're putting on your whole PR hat, it's very hard to see a situation where you can handle that name change debate well from the Redskins' perspective. But, yeah, in the long run, I'm with you. Tony Wiley's just been a mess. I think Larry Michael, who's the other kind of face of the Redskins when it comes to the PR, he's a nightmare too. They really don't have somebody who makes you want to support the name when it comes to their PR staff. Or support the team, I should say.
Tony Wiley, Coyote.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think we actually had a tentative plan one day to actually do a name change debate segment. So let's actually save the majority of our name change stuff for next time. Before I think we had one other headline to go over, and that was this whole Deflategate thing. Finally, a team besides the Redskins with some controversy surrounding them. We had a couple, I think, final thoughts, and the big news this week, as Kelly told us, was Tom Brady's appeal of Deflategate. I don't know. Steve's going to kind of take us through some of the more specifics there, but anybody have any concluding thoughts on Deflategate? Anything come up in the last week or so that's changed your mind about it? Kelly, what's up?
I have a concluding thought, which is that I would like all of this to conclude. I'm so tired of hearing about Deflategate. I'm tired of hearing about PSI. I'm tired of hearing about, they shouldn't have the rule, or, cheating. It's not cheating. It is cheating. It's bad. It's terrible. My kids, yada, yada, yada. I'm really, 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 really tired of it. I wish that Tom Brady had just owned up from the beginning and said, I do like the balls to be a little soft. Maybe they got too soft. I'm sorry about that. Punish me. And just been done with it. Instead, it's turned into fucking Watergate. It's turned into this massive, conspiracy thing. And now there's 1,000-page reports and 1,000-page counter reports and appeals and all this nonsense. I'm so tired of hearing about it.
I think we're all with you there. It's gotten silly at this point. I don't think Tom Brady's going to serve 4 games, so that's the only thing I'll say. I think that one of these appeals along the way, it'll get cut to 2.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to get cut down. I think Goodell, being the arbitrator here, he's pretty much just saying, I'm judge, jury, and executioner, and you're pretty much shit out of luck here, and it's not going to be any better. I don't really understand why it's just becoming such a big deal. People say the Super Bowl itself is tainted. I don't think so. I mean, they did it pretty fairly. I think they had the balls properly inflated, but I'm with Kelly on this. I'm ready for it to be over. I'm kind of deflated on the whole thing.
I do find it amusing that the NFL PAs come back to say we're going to appeal, yes. and Roger Goodell's like, great, you're going to appeal to me. I sort of like that. I don't like everything that Goodell does, but I think in this case, it's you're not going to go talk to mom. You're going to talk to dad again, and dad still says no.
I'm tired of the whole thing too. I'm sick to death of hearing about inflated balls and the righteous indignation of the Boston fans who think the world's out to get them, which is just dumb. They need to get over themselves. They really do. The NFL does anyone really think up there in Boston that the NFL wants to humiliate and embarrass its most highest profile team and the Super Bowl champion and the highest profile quarterback in the NFL? That's just ridiculous. You guys really need to get over yourself.
We'll send Greg after. We'll send Greg after you if we don't.
By the way, I'll give everybody a little brief kind of rundown of what's going on, sort of generally with the Brady thing. The CBA governs what's happening. There's several different categories of discipline that can be imposed on a player. No, first of all, the individual team can impose discipline. There's a series of minor infractions that get minor fines, equipment problems, being late to meetings, that kind of thing. They can get small fines for that. The team can also punish for conduct detrimental to a club, which is a wider range of things. What's interesting is that the NFL also can punish for conduct detrimental to a club. Mm-hmm. But I'll get to that a little later. Interestingly enough, the fines that are imposed can only be deducted up to $2,500 a week as per the CBA, or if there's not enough weeks left in the season to pay it out, then it goes up on a prorated basis. So if you're ever wondering if your favorite player, Brandon Merriweather, maybe, when he has his, 18th, penalty for hitting high, he didn't lose an entire paycheck. They prorated out the entire year. But so anyway, the club can impose fines, so that's one category. The league also can impose discipline, which is another category. Now, there's two different groups of things that the league can do here. One is on the field conduct, except unnecessary roughness and unsportsmanlike conduct, and then conduct detrimental to the integrity of the game. That's one bucket. So you have on the field conduct except unnecessary roughness, unsportsmanlike conduct, and conduct detrimental to the game. That is what Brady's in, is the conduct detrimental to the game, to the integrity of the game bucket. The theory being that if you deflate balls in the AFC Championship game, it's harms the integrity of the game because the public can lose confidence in the game, etc. In that case, the CBA mandates that the discipline be handled by the commissioner. Now, obviously, in this case, Troy Vincent is the one that handed out the discipline. So either there's an agreement between the parties, somehow that the commissioner doesn't have to do it, or something, because the CBA does say the commissioner has to do it. But regardless, what happens then is the player then has 3 days to appeal the decision. So Tom Brady appealed it automatically. The appellate officer in this case is someone appointed by the commissioner. Okay. In this case, but the CBA says the commissioner can always appoint himself, which is what he's done here. I think it's a very wise decision that he's done this because it's become such a massive controversy. I think the commissioner would be doing the issue a disservice if he appointed some other hearing officer. Because look, nobody's going to be happy. No matter what happens, they're all going to be somebody's not going to be happy about it. Either the Patriot fans are going to think they got screwed. The other teams are going to think that the NFL went easy on the Patriots. But more importantly, think about this from a political standpoint. The NFL paid, 7 figures to have a report done, right? Ted Wells, he's got an $800 attorney law firm that did this report. It's 243 pages long. Does anyone really think that Roger's going to toss that whole thing out the window?
No.
No, I don't. So I think what's going to happen is Tom Terrific is going to make his best appeal. He's going to make his best argument, and then Roger's going to default back to the report, most likely. So, okay, but that's that. And then the other side of it is, the other bucket is the unnecessary roughness or unsportsmanlike conduct. If you get that problem, the commissioner has to appoint a separate hearing officer. The CBA mandates that a hearing officer is appointed. And then the appeal again goes to Roger. All this talk about lawsuits, lawsuits and whatnot, can Tom sue the league? Is Robert Kraft going to sue the league? Let's come back to planet reality for a minute. You can come back from outer atmosphere, come back down to Earth. Robert Kraft is not going to sue the NFL. I will repeat myself. Robert Kraft is not going to sue the NFL. The NFL, he'd have to make an argument under the NFL Constitution, and it'd be a big process. The CBA waives, all rights to lawsuits. That's not to say you can't file something, but it'd be a very long process. But more than that, raise your hand if you think Robert Kraft wants to get crosswise with 31 owners. That's number one. And number two, a lawsuit is a multi-year process, kids. This is not something that gets resolved in a month. There's discovery, it goes on and on and on. There's pretrial motions, and unless he wants to get an injunction, it's just not going to happen. So, and same thing with Tom. Yeah.
Guys, I just was going to ask a question. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, what's the likelihood that any of these sentences get reduced, or at least the what's it called, the suspension of 4 games gets removed? I don't know if you remember any of the specifics about Bountygate, but some of those guys actually got unsuspended basically for the entire season. So I'm just wondering.
That is true, but something different happened in Bountygate. At the end of the day, the commissioner, because of the controversy behind it, appointed Paul Tagliabue to come in and handle basically what amounted to an extra appeal. And it was Paul Tagliabue that said that the NFL overreached. And I read the evidence. I don't want to get into the details of Bountygate necessarily, but I read all the NFL's evidence on Bountygate. I thought I thought the evidence was not strong. I thought a lot of the things they used did not point to the team intentionally trying to harm anyone. I thought the punishments were out of whack in that the players, that the NFL said the team was responsible for this. The general manager should have stopped it. The team was told specifically, and they didn't. Sean Payton was a coach. He knew or should have known about it. Yet the players got longer suspensions. So I think that's what Paul Tagliabue saw. In this case, this appeal is. That's not happening here so far. Roger Goodell's going to get it. I think it's possible that he can reduce it. And incidentally, the CBA says he can reduce it. He can vacate it completely. He cannot increase it. So Roger can't go, you know what, Tom? You came in here, you lied to me again. It's not 4, it's now 6 games. That can't happen. It's going to be 4 or something less than 4. I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, simply because the NFL has a lot at stake here. It's got its own integrity. It commissioned a $1 million report here, and by reducing the penalty, they're basically saying the report had flaws, and I don't think they're going to do that personally.
Right.
And just real quick, the last 2 ways people can get in trouble are obviously drugs. Just so people know, I'm not going to get into this. We'll do another day on the drug policy, but there's a drugs of abuse policy and then a performance-enhancing drug policy. That's 2 totally separate things. That is not league discipline. It's in the same manner as I just described. There's a whole big process for that, and we'll get into it another day. So those are the 4 ways that players can get in trouble, and that's that.
You get a bonus from the NFL if you can figure out a 5th. I think that they put that in the collective bargaining agreement. The more creative ways that you can get yourself in trouble, the more money you make in the NFL.
You can argue over anything in the CBA, and there's actually the CBA actually does appoint basically an arbitrator to arbitrate all the other provisions of the CBA too. So if anybody wants to argue about salary cap or something like that, if the team wants to, you can go down that route too. So It's all designed to keep everybody out of court.
Interesting. Right. Well, that is. Yeah. Anybody else got questions about Deflategate stuff? Because I know we want to pivot from that afterwards, but don't want to jump over anyone if they want to get a last final word on Deflategate stuff.
No.
Anybody? No. I just want to say, because I didn't get a chance to before, my final thought on Deflategate is this: Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady wasn't. He wasn't doing this when he first came into the league. I think this is obviously something that was going on as of late in the last couple seasons, maybe even in this last season. Of course, it's terrible that this was found out in a Super Bowl winning year. But there was
saying,
I don't think anybody was sniffing this out before that. So I think
he's been doing it for a couple of years. There was something
is that what they're saying, though?
Every team kind of knew he was doing this. So it's been going on for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I just have a hard time believing he, like, for example, coming in as a rookie quarterback and playing his first couple of years. I have a hard time seeing him do this. Maybe, right. But I mean, even like the first 5 years, it's sort of hard for me to believe that like he's cheating, bending the rules, deflating balls that young in the league. I feel like it's something that they were doing once he got much more comfortable as of late, and that sucks. You shouldn't do it, but I feel like the punishment is fair. 4 games isn't much.
Yeah, if the guy had come out, like Kelly said earlier, if the guy had come out and right after the AFC Championship game and said, "Whoops, busted," look, I like the balls, deflated a little bit. I didn't realize we were violating any rules. I'm sorry. We won't do it again. It's my fault. Don't blame the equipment guys. It all could have been over. But the reason why he's in this problem, the Wells report makes it pretty clear that if Tom Brady in particular and the Patriots in general had cooperated more, I don't think this would have happened.
Yeah.
There might have been a fine. He would have got some discipline. But I think this is a case of the bulk of the discipline coming from the fact that the investigator believed that they didn't cooperate and that they are hiding something.
Well, that's exactly right, Steve. So my take on this is it could have been a minor thing. The fact that he got up there and denied it and denied it and denied it and denied it and denied it, and then there ended up being an investigation and a report. Now it's something that's going to be attached to Tom Brady's name for the rest of time. I don't think that it's really going to tarnish his legacy in the way that people think that it will, because you think like Paul Hornung had these things happen to people. There are some, but it's the people who are the subject of the investigations that get remembered. Barry Bonds, these are the people. Barry Bonds' name is never going to be untarnished because he denied it forever before he got busted.
Oh yeah.
And Lance Armstrong denied it forever before he got busted, and so. It's the denial and the raising of the issue surrounded and attached to your name.
Don't have righteous indignation if you're guilty of something.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, I like to point out that Barry Bonds never was
true in
actually
sports,
busted.
it's true in politics, it's everywhere.
Barry Bonds technically wasn't busted, just for the record. He didn't fail a leak drug test. He got tried in court for basically lying to a grand jury. He got the jury hung on most of those counts. Oddly enough, I have a little bit of empathy for Barry, even though it sure looks like he did it. But he never really failed anything, and he was in the court to convict him. So that's a tangent for another day, maybe. So.
And really, in the end,
the
NFL still wins in this bad situation, because if it doesn't get if the appeal doesn't go through and it stays with 4-game suspension, Brady's going to come back just in time to play the Colts. That game is going to have probably the highest rated game in that season, and they'll win regardless. No matter how it plays out,
NFL
they'll
ratings
always
are
win.
a tricky thing.
Well, people aren't
we could do
gonna
another
stop
show
watching.
on that, I think, at some point.
I just think the NFL did not spend millions of dollars on a report to turn around and throw it in the trash can. So my guess is that the 4-game suspension stands, but that's just my guess. So should we move on to something more fun? Okay.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect perfect spot to move on. Thank you, Steve, for the usual very informative legal segment. Yeah. Let's go from here into our Redskins roster position group breakdown. This is an idea we just had in the last few weeks in the last few days since our last podcast. We figured we'd do in the off season here, since it's a little slow in terms of news, we do a position group rundown every week. We'll start. I think we decided to start today with wide receivers, which is a great starting point because Steve told us week 1 here of the Hogsty, that's where most of our money is going. Additionally, another reason that's topical is we signed, I think, a couple more in this Redskins. In the rookie. For rookie minicamp. So, perfect time to get right into it. Robbie, can you run us through what's going on at wide receiver for the Redskins right now?
Yeah, we got a pretty deep roster with receivers. We have, obviously, Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, Andre Roberts. They're the moneymakers right now. We also have the former rookie Ryan Grant, who was a training camp favorite last year. He really kind of stepped up to the occasion whenever he got his number called. We also have our 4th-round rookie that we just picked up, Jamison Crowder. We also have, I think he was a 6th-round pick, Evan Spencer. So plus all these other rookies that we brought in for the rookie minicamp and for training camp coming up. Pretty deep. Obviously, Deshaun, Pierre, and Andre are going to be they're probably locked, because Andre, you can't really cut him. He's got a lot of money that we'll still owe. In dead money, as Steve pointed out a couple weeks ago. The interesting thing is going to be how the bottom of that roster is going to shape up with Crowder, Grant, and a couple of these other young guys fighting for a spot. So it's going to be a pretty interesting position group to watch this coming training camp and preseason.
Yeah, I mean, is there any question who the number 1 and 2 guys are at this point? You're pretty much locked in that it's going to be Garçon and Jackson, and they'll both get about 1,000 yards this season, and that's about half your passing offense right there.
So the big question
on Garçon,
and
he had 68 receptions, 752 yards, 11.1 yards per reception last year. That's kind of a down year for him. If he's the possession guy to Deshaun Jackson's home run hitter guy, long ball guy, I still think we need to see more yards per reception from Garçon. It would help our offense.
Well, I think, like you said, it was a down year, but you go through as many quarterback changes as they had, it's understandable from his perspective.
Well, there was a lot of things that were going on, right? So Deshaun Jackson came in. None of the quarterbacks established a rhythm with anybody. Pierre Garçon had a kind of a career year, led the NFL in receptions the year before, but was really the only legitimate target on that roster at the time. Now that there are multiple targets, the ball should be getting spread around to everybody a little bit more. Unfortunately, instead of spreading the ball around 2 people, it resulted in fairly indecisive quarterbacking and the ball going to nobody more times than we wanted to see. The big question in the receiver corps on my mind this year is really about the battle between Roberts and Crowder. Who's going to be getting that number 3 position? I think that Crowder is a perfect build for a slot receiver for that Santana Moss replacement role. I think that he'd do a really good job there. Roberts still has something to add to this team, but it would not surprise me if Crowder beat him out for that slot number 3 role. And Roberts' role does become limited.
Let's not discount Grant either in that. Yeah. I mean, he's 1 year into the system now. A lot of rookies taken where he was, middle of the draft, they don't make it their first year at wide receiver. It usually takes 2, even 3 seasons for them to really develop. We were all sitting on our hands for a long time watching Hankerson, hoping that he'd become that guy, but he never did because of injury.
Last week, I think, on Grant, he's kind of become the fan favorite. Every year we have some guy that comes out of training camp or preseason. And we all think he's
Marco Mitchell.
Yeah, there you go, Marco Mitchell. Grant, he does.
He's got to show something.
He's only 6 feet tall. He's less than 200 pounds. His 40 time for NFL wide receiver standards isn't that fast. I guess he runs great routes. But I have to wonder if he really has a ceiling on him as to how far he's really going to go in the NFL, because just physically, he's not going to beat anybody. He may get in a system that allows his route running and his cutting ability to get him open, but he's never going to be a lead guy, anything like that. I wonder if the ceiling on Grant may be a number 3 receiver, and then you have Crowder someday, who's sort of the Deshaun Jackson replacement maybe, and that's kind of our future.
there's a thing in the NFL. Sometimes you get these guys who have these body types, right? Dorial Green Beckham is a great example of a guy who just has that size, that physical ability, that that Megatron-like domination. And then you have guys like Deshaun Jackson who bring a lot of speed and a lot of agility and a lot of cutting ability. But sometimes you get these guys in the league who find success. Eric Decker is a guy who comes to mind. They don't really have the size. They don't really have the blazing speed. But somehow they're able to get it done. They've got hands, and they've got brains. And so if you can run good routes and you can catch the football, I think that you can find a home in the NFL if you can do those two things consistently. What do you think, Alex?
Well, I mean, the thing I would point out about Grant, that the one thing he brought to the table when he was drafted, and I remember him saying one of the reasons they drafted him is he played special teams. And if we're talking about guys who are going to be your fourth, fifth, or I don't know if we'll keep 6 wide receivers, that might be a push. Those guys all have to be able to contribute in any way possible, either on special teams, as kick returners, or gunners, whatever. And Grant was brought on partly because, at least at the college level, he contributed in that way.
Yeah, and he obviously showed it that he can do special teams, but the thing that's always stuck out is his consistency.
Sure.
He's very reliable. As you saw in training camp, in the preseason, and even during the regular season when he got a couple shots, he found ways to get open, and he still made some plays. So no matter how dynamic or undynamic you are, if you continuously make good plays and be a solid contributor, you're going to get
find
a good
holes
shot.
in that defense and just sit in them and wait for the ball. That's what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think I'm too down on Grant. All I meant was, I wonder if he's kind of got a ceiling of what he can contribute. But there's a couple interesting prospects that are in camp right now, I think. One is Quentin Dunbar from Florida, wide receiver. He's 6'2", 200, about 200 pounds. And then there's another guy who honestly I've never heard of, but I saw his name, Tyler Ruttenbeck, from 6'2", 186 from Dubuque. That's how to pronounce that college.
Tyler Ruttenbeck.
Ruttenbeck, thank you. Both those guys are over 6 feet tall, by far our biggest wide receivers on the roster, along with Evan Spencer. So I wonder if one of those two guys has a shot to stick at least on a practice squad. We really need to get some height in this group. Garcon is currently our tallest. He's only 6 feet tall, but all the rest of these guys are under.
Yeah.
Grant's, I guess, 6 feet tall too. They're all small.
Spencer's at 6'2".
Yeah, Spencer. I said Rutenbeck, Spencer, and Dunbar.
Okay.
And so, I wonder if one of those guys really has a chance to contribute, because it would really be nice to have, on a goal line offense, have a bigger wide receiver who can, if nothing else, go jump up and get a fade, corner fade, catch maybe. Be nice to have a wide receiver with some hops, who's tall, who can catch that ball. I think, and McLuhan has said he likes bigger players. So I wonder if one of those two guys, Ruttenbeck and Dunbar, caught my eye as maybe someone we should pay attention to.
Now, one thing that we had kind of wanted to do with these off-season or with these position groups is look at free agents. And I'll be honest, did anyone think we would even look at a free agent wide receiver this year with all the money we've spent?
Nope. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. But to just go over a couple of guys who changed teams, Torrey Smith left the Ravens, went to San Francisco. You got Macklin, who left the Eagles, which, people talk a lot about the LaShawn McCoy thing with the Eagles. I think Macklin leaving is just as big of an impact in the end for them. That's a huge loss for them.
Definitely.
Which is good for us in the end. Then you had Percy Harvin. He's another big name that went from the Jets to the Bills.
That it is.
Percy Harvin's a case of perennially. Percy Harvin seems to be a case of perennially underachieving. The guy's got so much talent. He's blazing fast. He's a great wide receiver, but it never works out for him. How many teams have summarily dismissed that guy? The Vikings let him go. The Seahawks kicked him out halfway through the season last year. Unless I'm mistaken. I just wonder what's going on.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
His problem is that he's a douchebag.
He pretty much forced himself out.
Well, go.
Yeah, he's very much of a head case. And
The NFL seems to have 4 or 5 guys these days who change teams every year because there's such a problem in the locker room.
But they've got so much talent that they keep getting shot after shot after shot. So, Josh Gordon.
Yeah, it seems like there's a couple cornerbacks who do that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious one is Mr. Revis, Darrell Revis.
Yeah,
I think it's more about money with him more than anything. He signed. It seems like he's signs.
He's too expensive.
It seems like he signs a new tens of millions, multi-year contract every year, and then he leaves. That team
exactly.
It seems like every year he signs a $50 million contract. At least that's the way it seems.
Because he plays well enough to actually justify that money, and then teams instead of wanting to continue to pay it, they just let him go.
Right.
Well, speaking of free agent wide receivers changing teams, what do you guys think? Does Santana Moss end up somewhere else in the NFL this year, or is he finished?
New England.
I could see him going to
I
New
wouldn't go there.
Or Seattle.
He's going to go. If he goes anywhere, he's going to accept that he's a fourth wide receiver on a team that has a shot at the Super Bowl. I don't see him going to Baltimore for a year, even though they're close by. They don't have a real big chance at getting the Super Bowl, so why would he bother?
He strikes me. I think, was it you, Robbie, that said Patriots? I think he strikes me as a Patriots type of guy.
Yeah.
How many players like Santana have they brought in over the years? An older guy, good player.
Oh, sure.
It wouldn't surprise me to see him go there. Also, wouldn't surprise me to see him just be done. He's going into his 15th year, for goodness sakes. There's a lot of wide receivers out there, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's done. But I think I'm going to go with Robbie and say New England.
He said that he wants to keep playing, but I hope he knows in the back of his head that the odds of another team picking him up are pretty low at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a difficult transition for a guy to make. You've been spending your whole life playing football, and then suddenly you're faced with the possibility that that's it for you. You're finished with this, and you're going to have to. And that's it's a very difficult. Steven Jackson is a guy who's right now trying to get onto a team.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about wide receivers today, but Steven Jackson's shopping himself around. He wants a situation where he ends up on a championship contender, and I think that he sort of deserves that shot on the one hand, but on the other hand, what's out there is what's out there.
The NFL is a history of that, though. You could make an entire encyclopedia of really great players who just played for terrible teams their whole career.
Oh yeah.
Sonny Jurgensen, he played for the Redskins probably during their worst decade of play.
I'd just like to make one last point before we move on from the wide receivers about Andre Roberts. The guy had 36 receptions, 453 yards, 12.6 yards per reception last year, only 2 touchdowns. They brought him here, if everybody remembers, to be the number 2 wide receiver. He didn't really live up to that stats-wise, which is expected. But the point I really wanted to make is that the guy dropped a lot of balls. I want to say he got charged with 7 drops last year. I think that's the number. Maybe we obviously lucked out with Deshaun Jackson, but maybe we lucked out with Roberts not being our number 2 receiver. That he does have talent. He doesn't have upper end speed necessarily, but if he can't catch a greater percentage of balls than that, his ceiling with us is been maxed out already.
7 seems kind of small to me. I thought he dropped more than that.
Don't hold me to the number.
Or maybe it seemed like it.
It might have been more.
Well, it felt like there were a number of drops by a lot of our guys. Garcon had something like 100 targets, and he only caught 60 balls, which, those numbers, I know some of those are balls thrown over his head and stuff like that, but still, that seems like a lot of missed opportunities on his part.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the percentages are, for average number 1 receivers. So, I mean, you've got cornerbacks making plays. You've got bad throws. We'd have to do an analysis of it. What I am confident in saying is I believe Roberts had more drops than any of the rest of our receivers.
Oh, yeah,
I would expect that that's the case, but I think part of the reason for that, I don't think that Roberts is used to being a guy who's only seeing the ball, 3 or 4 times a game. He's a guy who he was brought in to be a number 2. We needed somebody opposite Garcon. We brought in Roberts. He was going to be on the field every play. Then we brought in Deshaun Jackson. Suddenly, Roberts isn't getting the looks that he used to get, not only in the game but in practice. Unless he was the number 3 guy in Arizona, but I think he was the number 2 guy in Arizona.
Yeah, but remember, he was the number 3 guy in Arizona, and the reason why he came to us, in court, this is what he told the press at least, is that he was excited about being able to become a number 2 wide receiver. So
Okay.
right after Deshaun Jackson appeared is when he volunteered to be the kick and punt returner. Remember, because he's trying to make himself more valuable to the team. I think he had basically resigned himself to the fact that he was going to be the number 3 guy here. Nobody can argue with Deshaun Jackson, being a starter. So let's make myself more valuable. I'll be the punt returner.
Well, let's be honest. He'll be gone. He'll probably be gone as
Right.
soon as his contract
Fair
makes
enough.
sense for
Probably
us to
so.
trade him or
Probably
move him
so.
somewhere.
Especially if
So.
especially if Crowder pans out. Jay and McLuhan both seem to be
Probably.
really high on Crowder. Robbie, have you watched any film on him, Crowder? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not he doesn't have that top speed like Deshaun, but
Yeah.
he's very very shifty and elusive. He makes some serious cuts.
That's
it's
what I
pretty cool.
saw. Is he's very very agile guy. So if he pans out, what Roberts may have one more year here, and that's probably it for him.
Robbie, did you have some thoughts? I know that Jay Gruden had a presser earlier today, and for folks who are listening, this is we're recording this on Saturday morning, so if you're listening to it on Thursday, I apologize. It's your own fault. You should probably listen to us more quickly than that, so that all this
It
stuff
could be
makes
my
sense to
fault.
you.
I could edit this thing really poorly sometime this week.
Alex did it. So if you're listening on Thursday,
Nonsense,
blame Alex. If you're listening to it earlier than that and it's timely and wonderful and you really like it, then blame Kelly because it's probably my fault if you really enjoyed the show. But Robbie,
Way to
getting back
pat yourself.
to football here, do you have any thoughts on what Gruden was talking about earlier today in his presser?
Yeah, his presser just ended about maybe 10 minutes ago or so. The rookie minicamp for the Saturday session is over, so he had a lot of good stuff to say, a lot of cool nuggets. He's really impressed with Preston Smith's length, and his length is what draws you to him, quote unquote.
Hopefully he didn't say that after seeing him in the shower or anything.
Yeah, it's a little personal.
And another thing about Brandon Scherf, he says, for Brandon, shorts is not what he wants pads. So all these unpadded, just in helmets sessions is like, it's not good enough for him. He wants to do the full contact and kick some ass out there. And that's one thing he really loves about Brandon Scherf. Let's see, what else did we have?
Brandon Scherf should be
Hey,
a
Robbie,
rugby player, it seems
since
like.
you've actually played the game there, do you feel like there's a big difference when you're practicing in pads and versus not in pads, or
It's hell.
really
It's
a
hell
question
for
of the
offensive
intensity
linemen.
of the player?
Yeah, it's hell for offensive linemen when they're just in helmets. Trust me, the D line takes full advantage of that. They grab helmet. They do anything they can. It's so unfair for offensive linemen in those kind of practices.
Next thing
especially
you know, they're impressed by
D
your
linemen
length.
if they're doing when they're doing pass rush 1-on-1s and stuff. The D linemen go to bull rush. There's no pads to grab onto and kind of lock them out and
Right, hey-
and brace against it.
Hey, Robbie, when
it's
you're
not
playing,
fun. Those are the worst practices,
The
actually.
critics always talk about hand placement and as an important part of what an offensive lineman does. When you're using your hands and you get inside pads, are you grabbing the pads physically? So you're going to grab them and hang on for dear life. You're not just kind of pushing against them. You're actually physically holding on to them.
Well, the when you're putting your hands on them, it's mostly like a punch. I was taught to have my hands together, like I'm making a diamond, with your hands. You punch like that with your hands inside. You get a good punch, and then when they start to try to bull rush, that's when you grab them and kind of just hold on and brace yourself, because when they're really trying to bull rush you, you have to. But yeah, pretty much,
that's why I was about to go
linemen
with
are
that.
always
That's
holding
technically a holding call,
in a
I guess.
play.
You're grabbing
But
pads.
if you're
It's just a matter of not getting caught, right?
No, you're allowed. You're allowed to
No,
hold
as
them if your
as
hands
long-
are inside. If you can keep your hands inside
Exactly.
their shoulders,
Right.
you're allowed to hold them. You just can't. You can't go
Exactly.
outside and grab them.
And so to kind of
Yep, as long as your
Right.
hands
Go
are
ahead,
inside, you're golden. But
So this might be a little too of a weird question, and if it is, we'll cut it out of the edit. But with the way that uniforms are cut now, is that really changed much in terms of how linemen can hold on? Or because 10 years ago, everyone had the same kind of baggier jerseys. Now everyone's got these in-cut shoulders where you can even see the pads on the sides. I wonder if little things like that have changed how the line plays.
Yeah, it shows easier, in my opinion, when you're holding on these tighter jerseys, because when you're pulling on it, it really it stretches out, and you can obviously tell a lineman's holding. So yeah, it definitely affects how that plays out. Yeah. But me go to a couple more tweets here from Gruden.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, all these nuggets are from the local beat reporters like Mike Jones from the Washington Post, Rich Tandler from Comcast Sportsnet. One thing Gruden said about Matt Jones, our third-round draft pick running back, says he's actually really good in space and shows good hands. So that's good to hear for those that are concerned about him being our third down back. He said Connor Halliday left him a voicemail saying he's just going home, didn't give any reason why he retired.
Can we please stop saying the man retired? Can we just say it for what it is, which is he quit? Yeah. You can't retire from a job that you have not started.
Called it quits.
He quit. He quit.
He quit.
Quitter.
I don't
It's
think he
funny
ever
to
got a
say.
paycheck, did he?
Is what he is.
Says that Jamison Crowder's football IQ is through the roof, and he's showing the ability to play slot receiver effortlessly, and he's really impressed with him. So that's also really good news.
That's a good sign.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Blake Sims, the quarterback from Alabama, for those that didn't know, was invited to come to the mini camp as a running back and not as a quarterback. Says that Blake Sims looks like he's been playing running back for a long time, so that's pretty interesting to hear. He looks pretty good as a running back.
He's a guy who I actually see him making our practice squad because, especially with Halliday gone now, we need somebody to be on the practice squad, be that not just running back, but he can play quarterback in those weeks where we're going up against a more mobile team. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but we've also got two guys in camp that are quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, they're terrible,
name is
though.
Escaping me. If somebody knows it, yes. If somebody bring them up, it's the quarterback from Georgia and then backup
USC.
from USC. Yeah, and then the backup from USC. So I don't know. I mean, those who know me know I'm sort of biased against Alabama football in some respects, and so I take what I say with a grain of salt as always. But Blake Sims is not an NFL quarterback. I don't think his arm was good enough.
Well,
maybe so.
But he could be a good practice squad guy. Is all I'm saying. That's not an NFL quarterback either.
Yeah, and I'll end the Nuggets from the presser with he said that it's very likely that they won't go into training camp with 4 quarterbacks. They might just stick with Robert, Colton, Kirk. So,
yay!
Very likely.
And one running back that used to play quarterback that everybody's going to call for to get on the field.
Quarterback for us at some point.
Yeah.
God help us.
Pat White 2.0.
Pat White too.
Well,
hey, we've seen weirder things.
Yeah,
it's all about, you have to have 10 guys on your practice squad, and one has to be able to play quarterback.
Yep.
Right. Well, I think my favorite nugget of those, Robbie, was probably Jones having good hands. I just looked this up. I didn't realize this. Roy Halou actually holds the Redskins record for most receptions in a game with 14. He did it in 2011 against the Niners. We have a major void for a pass-catching back. So that actually is great news. That might be my favorite nugget. By the way, the person right below him on that list, again, the most receptions in a single game is Art Monk with 13. So kind of a shocking stat. But anyways.
The power of the check down.
Exactly.
Power of the check down.
Yeah. I think Roy Halou and Mark Brunell could have made magic together.
Oh yeah. Well, and Brunell has the record for the most consecutive passes, right?
Imagine if he was there for the Houston game.
There might have been 20 checkdowns in that game. Yeah. 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 Roy Halou could have caught 20 screen pass and checkdown, plays in a row for Mark Brunell.
Granted, it would only be for 100 yards, but...
Yeah. Well, intrepid Skins quarterbacks from yesteryear aside, I think we were going to end on a little game today. This will be great. What this game is called Fantasy or Football. Fantasy or football.
All right.
The game here is I'm going to read a name of either a football player. This could be a current player, a college player, or an old school player. or a name of a fantasy character. Nobody here knows this list. I'm the only person who has this list, so these guys don't know who they are. And we're going to go around and see. Everyone's going to tally up their own scores and see how many names they can guess correctly as being a football player or a fantasy character. So play along with us. Yeah. Robbie totally has an unfair advantage here. He is like me. He's into all things nerd. But if you're listening along at home, play along with us, see how well you do. And if you're an alien listening to this in 3075, this is what mankind spent its time doing. So if we are ready to go, let's kick it off. Your first name, fantasy or football, is, and we're gonna start. I think this is an easy one. We're gonna start with Spencer Drango. What do you think? Football? Fantasy? Spencer
that's
Drango.
football.
Drango?
Football?
Yeah, I'm going football.
Yeah, that's
football. We got
football.
2 footballs. Football?
Robbie said football, so I'm going to go with football.
Okay. Steve?
Alex, what
Robbie
do
was
He's-
determined on that one too.
me,
I'm-
I think the first name Spencer's got to be a football player. I'm going to say football.
Got to be football?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the tackle for Baylor.
There we go. He actually knows the player. I told you he had an unfair disadvantage. No, this is going to get harder, guys. I promise. That was a softball, but don't get used to it.
It's not
Gonna
going
be
to get
fastballs
any
here.
harder if Robbie answers before I do.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Okay, Robbie, you have to go last.
Let me.
just so
I'll
all
answer
of us
last.
go wrong.
I'll go last. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Agreed. Robbie goes last. All right. Your next name, fantasy or football. Roland Deschain.
What was it again? Sean, I didn't hear it.
Roland Deschain. Fantasy or football.
We're having.
The name was Roland Deschain.
The Shane. I'm gonna say
I'm
that's.
going
I'm-
football again.
I'm gonna say that's another football.
I'm gonna say fantasy.
Yeah.
Roland.
Okay.
Roland. I
Robbie
think, is
already
a
looks
fantasy
like he's
player.
got an idea.
Well, he knows.
I'm saying fantasy too.
And Roland Deschain is,
I
of
said
course,
football.
the titular character in Stephen King's The Gunslinger. Robbie, again, you are correct. If you said fantasy, you were correct.
you know what kills me? I
2 points for Gryffindor.
I read that entire series. I read the whole series, and I thought Roland was the name of the guy in The Gunslinger. But Deschain, I thought, I didn't even know that the dude had a last name.
I just want somebody on this
so,
crew.
I'm very upset now that I guessed football
just
when
want
I
somebody
actually
on
knew
this
who the
crew to give
character
me
was.
props, because I didn't get any points last week in our
I've
game,
never.
and I finally
I'm
got
not a
point
big
this
Stephen
week.
King guy. I've never read any
And
Stephen
everybody.
King.
Thank you.
Oh,
You,
I just want to feel loved.
Steve, you
That's
did get it right.
Yeah.
you got it, Steve. You got props in my book.
I won last week, and I think I'm now sole leader of last place this week.
all. All right. Let me get another one right. Go ahead, Sean.
All right, moving right along. Make sure you're tallying your scores here, people. Moving right along, our next name, Malcolm Reynolds. This is a simple name. It could be fantasy, could be football. Malcolm Reynolds. What do you think?
Oh, I'm going fantasy on this one.
Malcolm Reynolds. I'm going to say football.
Yeah, Malcolm Reynolds. That's got to be a football
Okay.
player's name. That'd be a really boring fantasy character's name. So I'm going football.
Okay.
I think it's fantasy. I'm gonna guess fantasy.
And the answer is fantasy. Malcolm Reynolds is the captain of the Firefly class ship, the Serenity
Oh,
in
yeah.
Firefly. Come on,
What show is
Steve.
he?
You need to brush up
show
on your
is he?
canceled Fox sci-fi
Serenity.
shows.
Or Firefly.
That's a TV. That's a TV show.
It's from the. Yep. Firefly.
That's a show.
You guys are really pulling some obscure.
That
stuff
was
out there.
who's
Yeah.
the actor in
Malcolm
that?
Reynolds. Come on.
I bet you I can find it.
Come on. He was played by Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, that's his name, Nathan Fillion.
It is a cult favorite.
Steve, I think you'd like Firefly. It's about the Civil War, but it happens in space.
Your next name in fantasy or football. Your next name is
Say it again.
Sir Gregory Thornton.
Sir Gregory Thornton.
Sir Gregory
Is that a
Thornton.
British prince? Is he a British royalty?
Sir Gregory
perhaps?
Thornton. What do you think?
If you took out the Sir, it'd probably be a little harder.
Think so? Is that your guess? So what are you saying? You're saying fantasy?
I'm saying fantasy.
I'm saying
football.
because I don't think you'd throw a sir out there if it was
Red
that
herring.
obvious. I think that you're fucking with everybody, so I'm going to go
Same
with
here.
football.
Yeah, I'm with Kelly. I'm going with football because I think I think you're trying to sandbag us. Football.
What do you think, Robbie?
Yeah,
Did
it's
you say?
football. It's got to be.
Oh man, you guys are too smart for me. That is football. He is a running back out of Arkansas State, Sir Gregory Thornton. But what a great fantasy name that is. It's his first name is literally Sir Gregory. It's one word, Sir Gregory.
It's like Prince Amukamara.
I'm naming my next kid Sir Gregory.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. Isn't there a guy in Game of Thrones named Sir Gregory?
There's Sir Gregor.
Don't nerd out on us too much.
Gregor,
Sir
Gregor
Mountain.
That's what I'm thinking.
Clegane or whatever.
The mountain that
Thornton,
rides.
that's right.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, nice. Everybody still tallying their scores, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah,
Better be.
losing.
Okay, good. Moving right along then, let's go to your next name. Fantasy or football, Chongo Condolo.
Fantasy.
Chongo Congolo.
No, I'm going football. I'm going to think that he's one of these guys from Cameroon or somewhere that has immigrated to the United States. So I'm going football.
That
Okay.
great
All right.
Cameroon football tradition. Right there.
And Alex, did you give yours?
I'm going to go fantasy.
I'm gonna say fantasy.
Steve, look at you go, man. He is a Nebraska guard, Chongo
Aw,
Condolo.
Steve.
Good job,
That's right.
Steve.
Everyone bow to my superiority, please. Because nobody else bows to me, so you guys.
Well played. All right, Chungo.
Mongo like candy.
Your next name, fantasy or football, Sonny Six Killer. Sonny Six Killer. Is that a fantasy name or a football name?
I think it's a fantasy name. I don't think that anybody's named Six Killer in real life.
I
Steve?
mean, if it's a nickname, it's possible. But I'm going to lean towards fantasy as well.
I think that is another one that's too obvious, and so I'm going football.
I'm gonna stick with Steve on this. I'm gonna go with Steve.
You guys are correct. Sonny Six Killer is, of course, the intrepid quarterback out of Washington State from yesteryear. Come on, guys. Who doesn't know Sonny Six Killer? He's Native American. That's why he has a sweet name.
Say what?
Yeah.
Say a name.
Fantasy or football, Obum Guachum.
Football. Obum.
Watch him who?
If that is a real name, I really feel sorry for him.
You know, I have a great recipe for cooking Olgum Watchum on my rotisserie at back.
You put it in the slow cooker, man.
Oh, I'm gonna go fantasy.
I'm going to say football.
I'm going fantasy.
I'm gonna
going
say fantasy.
Football.
Football. Alex says football as well. Kelly and Alex say football. And Robbie says fantasy. If you said football, you were correct. Clearly, you fantasy guys need to watch more Oregon State games so you can see their defensive end, Obum Guachum, just destroy people.
Or no, Alex just advocated cannibalism, I believe, there. If he was gonna put Ogum Guachum in his rotisserie.
Yeah.
You also must have
I
a
was
pretty
going to let
big
that one go.
rotisserie.
I'm
Alex
glad
is
you
from the
brought that up.
terminus
I'm
community.
always glad you bring
Walking
up
Dead.
cannibalism.
Okay, let's do a couple more here. How about... Let's do... Yeah, let's do Tenil Joe.
Football.
I'm going football.
2 footballs?
I'm gonna go
Fantasy.
I'm gonna go fantasy then.
I think that he was in the rookie classes here.
Cross my fingers.
Robbie and Steve taking it away again. God, you guys are a good team. Tenil Joe is the witch hunter from the original Star Wars trilogy. Very well done. But he could also totally be a linebacker, too, let's be honest. Tenil Joe, I could see
Wait,
that.
he's what? The witch hunter?
He is a witch hunter from the expanded original trilogy Star Wars universe.
He was also half
What
of
does
the
that mean?
70s pop group Captain and Tennille.
All right. So moving right along to your next fantasy or football name, that was Tenil Joe. And God, we need some guys to study up on their Star Wars stuff. Episode 7's coming out at the end of the year. I know
yeah.
Robbie's excited. Moving on then along to your next name, let's go Chocobo Sage. Chocobo Sage. Fantasy name or football name? Again, Chocobo Sage.
Now, did you say Chocohobo
See,
or Chocobo?
I think I actually remember hearing that name. I've heard that name before, and what kills me is I think that it's a football name. I also think that a chocobo is an animal in Final Fantasy, and so I think that it came from Final Fantasy. But then I thought I remembered it. You know what? I don't even know. I'm gonna say fantasy because I have 3 points. I'm not gonna win this damn thing. I'm not gonna take my time getting it
You
right.
said all that to say you have
yeah.
no idea and you guessed.
Okay.
I'm guessing fantasy.
I'm going football. I think. The
think
last
it's
name
football.
Sage is just so
Football.
like it throws you
Yeah,
off
I'm
there.
going football too. I thought the name
That's so
Sage,
football.
I think it sounds like.
Okay.
I'm
Robbie,
saying
Steve, what you guys
fantasy.
got?
It sounds like a football name, but I think it's fantasy.
I'm going football. Lock me in.
Okay, so Steve, you said
Yeah,
football?
lock me in for football.
Okay, and Robbie said fantasy. The answer is fantasy.
Oh,
Haha.
It's a character from the Final Fantasy series of
You
video
were right.
games, in fact.
Kelly was right.
You were right. All right, let's make the last one. I think there's only 2 points separating Kelly. There's only 2 points separating you from the next person. So let's make this next one worth 3 points. Right? Am I right?
Well,
I could be wrong.
Yeah, sure.
This is
Why
This
not?
is the bonus round. This is the bonus round.
On to the bonus round.
this one's worth 300 points.
Munchie Lego. That's a French name. Legaux. Again, Munchie Lego. Football or fantasy?
Damn. That's such a
Munchie,
great
just
name.
like you got the munchies.
And we have
Lego, very French.
we have awkward silence.
It's a great name.
I'm going to say
But
that's
is
a
it
football
real
player.
or is it
Sean,
fake?
Sean, that's a football player. Munchie Lego, football player.
I'm going football player. I think he played in the CFL in the 1970s for the team that was in Quebec at the time.
Alex, that's ridiculous that you just called that up.
You do not think that. I'm gonna say football because Munchie does not sound like a tough, strong fantasy character to me. That sounds like a ridiculous real name. Sorry, Mr. Lego.
I'll say
No, Munchie
And
could.
I think it's pronounced Monche.
Munchie.
Not anymore. it's
Munchie
not.
could totally be like the comms officer on the Starship Enterprise, right? Like, beam me up, Munchie. I could totally see that.
Give
You
it
know
all
what I mean?
she's got,
Can't you hear
Captain.
that?
Football player or Scotty? Munchie Lego.
Okay, so obviously you guys are right. It's a football character. He's a former Cincinnati quarterback of the days of yore. It's been some time since Munchie's seen the field, but he lives on in the Hogsty fantasy or football.
so. With the
game.
3 extra points, I have 10.
Okay, what are your scores? Let's read them off. Steve, what you got?
Okay, well the last one was worth 3, right? So then I believe I have 9.
Okay, Kelly, what you got?
46.
46.
Minus
I love
40.
I did pretty good.
I think you might have rounded there just a little bit.
Rounded up to 46.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Well, 3. I think I ended up with 7 points. That last one was 3. I got 7.
7? Okay.
Okay,
What you got, Alex?
Robbie.
I'm bringing
Well-
up the rear with a nice big 6.
With a 6. Oh man, I thought you were doing better than that. Robbie, did you take this game away? Like I
By
knew
1
you would.
point. 10 points. Winner.
There we go.
Man, nobody gets double
I knew
digits
he would
in
win.
fantasy or football. That was amazing.
Good job, Robbie.
Thank you.
All right, nice. Well, that was fantasy or football. A great game. Good job, all involved. Let's. I guess we should cut it there. I don't know. Anything else going on in our lives we want to shout out
I
here
got
on
something.
the Hogsty? What's going on, guys?
Mad Max.
Anything?
If you guys haven't seen it yet, it just came out yesterday, and it is fantastic.
Yeah?
Fan-freaking-tastic action movie. It's nonstop gut-punching action, and it was incredible.
I'm looking
I
forward to
saw a
seeing
bunch
it.
of
As
reviews.
soon as my wife has a night off, we're going to see it. I
think
will not be
it got
here
fabulous
next week,
reviews.
guys. I've got to go on a trip to Boston. My brother's graduating from the Boston Architecture University. with
congratulations
honors,
to
and he
him.
might win like a nice award or something. So I won't be here on Saturday, but I hope you guys still do the show and all.
I think Alex is actually going to Boston to comfort Giselle Bundchen as a result of the loss of her husband's integrity.
And
Right.
income.
And manhood, last I heard.
Well, have fun in Boston.
Yeah, have a great time, and we'll see you back for episode, I don't know, what is it,
Episode
4,
5.
something like that next week. Oh, well.
46.
We'll see you
Hogsty
back.
returns.
Yeah, we'll go with Kelly's rounding.
Episode 46 is next, guys.
Okay, nice. Well, good job, everybody. That's right. 46 is next. We'll see you back next time for episode 46. You have, of course, been listening to the Hogsty, Washington's unofficial leading source for all things the Redskins and the NFL. Make sure you get with us online, and we'll see you on the interwebs at the Hogsty on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Hail to the Hogs, and on YouTube at youtube.com/The Hogsty. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Six.